Hello there. My name is Void Ghost, and I would like to tell you about politicians, or specifically why the politicians lie. I mean, you probably noticed some politicians saying a lot of stuff about what they're gonna do, and when they get elected, it's kind of not the same as they promised. Actually, when you look at their whole term, you get some of the stuff they promised, kind of, and then some other stuff they didn't promise, and then some of the stuff they did mention will not get touched at all. So, how does this work? Why does this happen? I'll try to explain. First, however, let's mention four things that affect elections, affect who gets to decide your future. So what exactly do I mean here? And well, it's going to be rather clear later on why this is important. And the first thing is, when you want to get something passed by a vote, this usually doesn't happen. Actually, you have representatives, right, who vote for you in any specific case. But if you want to specifically make a vote for the population, what you get is, well, there's something you present, and I heard a very good example, and I'm gonna just repeat it here. So let's say you take a big portion of the population and you tell them to pay $20 to a big pool of money, and then you take that money, or that's what you intend to do, and distribute it amongst a small portion of the population. So let's say it's 80% of the population that's got to pay, and 20% that's actually going to get something out of this. And now you make it a public vote. Well, if it passes, then it's going to happen. And now you would think that it's never going to pass because 80% of the population is going to have a strong incentive to not let it happen, right? But what if you count that getting to the place where they are gonna actually vote and back to where they came from, and taking the time, that's gonna cost them $20. Now, what is the smart move here? Even if you're gonna lose $20 by this law passing, even if you try to stop it, you're going to have to pay that amount. One way or another, you are going to lose $20. So if you just stay home and not vote, you're okay, you're going to lose $20. If you go and vote, you're going to at least lose $20, because if it anyway passes, then you're going to in total lose $40. On the other hand, if you're going to get some money from this, you want to invest that $20 to get to the voting booth. Now, what does there are two things actually that kind of come from this, or they converge, you could say. So one is concentrated benefit and dispersed cost, and that's pretty much what I mentioned just now. And then you have rational ignorance. Now, I'm not going to go much into that, but basically it's the fact that you don't know everything about everything. So someone says, you know what, we're going to get some money, but from you, yeah, but we're going to use it to do something that is needed by the population, and here are the reasons why this is absolutely needed. And you listen to him, and he has some education in this area, and he's a politician, so he has some agenda, and pretty much nothing about it. So you can believe him or not, but the thing is, you're not gonna actually know all the data that you would need to know to understand the issue and actually make the right decision for you. So you have to rely on others to make the decision for you, or present you the facts that they want to present to you, and those might not be all of them, and of course they're going to be biased here. That's how it's going to work. Now there's another thing we should look at, and here I'm going to use my trusty pencil and some paper. And what we have here are voters in a district. So there's 100 circles here, and there are empty circles and full circles. Now, these voters will actually elect representatives. And the way we're gonna allow this to happen is by splitting them into tens. And if you have a 10 where the majority are going to be the empty circles, well then that's a vote for the empty circle representative, you could say. Or that's one representative in the group we're going to be electing from this area. Maybe that's a better explanation, right? The second one. So how would we split this? Well, we have a number of ways to do that. One would be like this. So you go 10 empty circles, right? Then another 10, and this way you get 6, 2, 4. 6 guys or representatives elected to represent the interests of the empty circles, and the full circles get 4. And that's pretty okay, right? It's fair, it seems to be. But what if we do it in another way, like this? Now, if we take groups that are like this, we're going to have 6 empty circles and 4 full circles. So in this group, we get a representative for the empty circles. If we divide all the voters like this, then we get 10 for the empty circles and 0 for the full circles, right? So we basically eliminated the minority here, totally. Now, there's of course a more perverse way to do this, and that is to make the minority have more representatives. But how would we do that? Well, if we say cut out 6 full circles and add 4 empty circles, in this group the full circles will have a majority. And if we do that over and over, then we're going to end up with a few groups that are going to be almost totally empty circles. But it doesn't matter. If you have 6 or if you have 10 of your kind of circle, it doesn't matter. You get the representative in that group. So in the end, you would have 4 for the empty circles and 6 for the full circles. So as you see, we can actually tweak this as we wish, and depending on the exact way we it's gerrymandering, that's the term used to describe this sort of behavior, or spreading or cutting up the voter base, we can get the effect we want. Now, of course, this is an ideal situation. This is more like a mathematical problem here. the reality is that some of the voters might be swayed one way or another, even if in the last moment, by some political stunt, for example. So if we would actually have a group where we had just slightly more our people or our voters than the other people's voters, then in effect we would actually be risking a lot, because we might lose on that. So it's not an ideal situation, not in real life, that is, but this is the ideal situation we can look at. And then we have another thing. I wrote some smiley faces to represent the people you can actually have in some area, okay, and they're all going to be kind of the same in here, but there's going to be an issue, some big issue. Maybe it's how much support the military needs, how much funding should go to the police force, or something like that, right? Or do you need more public education or less? What's the ideal situation? Well, some people will want more of that issue or more funds directed there, and some will want less. Now, let's say we have a politician and he's going to position himself right here. This is my square politician, and he's going to be on this very far side of the issue. In this case, let's say he's very far left on this. So if it's the police force, he says no, too much money for the police force already, and some of the people will like that, others not so much. These people on the right will say, no, that's bad, that's very bad. But then we have another politician, and he's gonna be a big circle. Why not? And this is gonna be where he positions his views, or what he says that his views are, right? So right now, these voters will vote for the circle because he's more towards what they want than the other guy. They don't like either one of them, but this one is closer. So this square guy will see what's happening, and pretty soon he's gonna jump over here, and he's gonna actually say that he was misrepresented at every debate, and what was said about him and his political views is absolutely not right. He was actually saying that just a little bit less money should go there, and not that much less, right? And then this guy is gonna see that he has a problem, because now his opponent cleverly secured all those votes. Now this is a smaller amount than he had before, but now he doesn't have that. He does have these voters right here on the far left, but if he doesn't move, and he will move with his political views over here, if he wouldn't make that move, then unfortunately he would lose. So in the end, you see the politicians drifting towards the middle, and that's something you can observe over and over. Usually when a new politician appears on the political arena, you're going to hear a lot of very controversial statements, or things like, we have to change everything, or we have to do something, or we all gonna perish, die, be destroyed, or there's gonna be a lot of things he's gonna be saying. It's gonna be loud, and it's gonna be very decisive in one way or another. And then as time passes and he gets to the point when he actually might get elected, you will see him forget about those issues he said, or say something about them, but it's going to be very mild, very toned down. That's what's going to happen. Always. And if it's not, then you're going to see these fringe politicians. They're going to have a little tiny voter base. And they're going to secure it with all probability. And sometimes that means that a political party in some countries can get a few votes or a few representatives in whatever voting body there is, and they're gonna get in there year after year, but they're never gonna have much representation. They're never gonna have many people in the government or in a position of making any decisions, right? But they can always ally themselves with someone else and then make a coalition, and in that coalition they're gonna have an issue or two, or maybe a few more done as they would want it. Okay, so now let's go to, well, there's one more thing that you should know. You see, there's a sort of monopoly that the government has on governing. When a politician is elected, he or she is basically unmovable. They can back out of everything they said, absolutely everything, do nothing through their whole term. And you know what's going to happen? Oh, nothing's going to happen. There, pretty much, there isn't a place in the world, I think, or no democratic countries, at least, that have some way of kicking this politician out. If he doesn't do something drastic, of course. So if he just pretends to do stuff, or does stuff, but they're not actually good for the whole country, he's going to stay in his position for the term, which is usually about 4 years. Okay. Oh, and where does that leave us? Well, the bureaucrats in general don't have to adjust what they're doing. So there's a lot of things you can associate with that. It's going to be hard to get some permit for something, and if you compare that to the public sector, you're going to have a strange sensation that they're from different planets, because if you want to sell something, then of course you want to attract that customer, but because if he has choices, he can go and buy something somewhere else. And if you want to get a permit or do something that a government agency is the sole provider of that specific whatever it is, right, then you have no choice. And a politician can and will use that fact, you could say, against you, but to help themselves. And now, one more thing. Politicians in general are people. And what do people want? Well, usually they want what's good for them. But sometimes you can get an altruist, a martyr of sorts, right? A martyr that's going to sacrifice himself for the good of the people. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. Mostly I'm going to talk about a typical politician, or in this case I'll straight out name him as a cynic. He's in it for the win. He wants to get elected. That's it. Okay? Whatever the cost of that doesn't matter. not to him. On the other hand, I'm going to mention a martyr, a guy that really, really wants to help the people. And I'm going to say guy because that's going to make it nice and simple. These, of course, could also be women, no problem. It's not going to affect the outcome here of what I'm going to tell you. So, we have our first guy, and let's say he's going to be trying to get elected as a mayor of a big city. So let's describe that city a little. Oh, the exact number of the population doesn't matter. But somewhere they have some water and they have a port. That's going to be important later on. And they have a neighborhood. It's not big. It's pretty densely populated. And this is a bad neighborhood. What do I mean by bad? You can track most of crime in the city to that spot. It comes from there. Why? Well, perhaps a lot of people from somewhere else came to the city, and without perspectives, without resources, they kind of went there, and that's the cheapest place to you can survive, kind of. And then gangs form, criminal activity blossoms. That's the situation. Now, there's also another thing we should address, and that is that the center of the city, which has some growth in it, okay? So the whole city on average is growing, and the prosperity is going up, not down, but just slightly. This is an issue, and this I will tell you about it in a moment. And this is traffic. Now, the center of the city, in our example, was built a long time ago, and unfortunately for the city, it has nowhere left to build roads. Or does it? We're going to get to that in a moment. So, our politician, let's call him candidate A, he needs a few issues he's going to adopt as his main thing. Okay? These are the things he will promise to fix. Now, there is also a candidate B. We're going to keep it very simple. These two people are the only ones who can pretty much be elected. Others, they just don't count. Not in this city, not in this election. So, our candidate, the A guy, consults his people. That's the group of individuals who will advise him on what to do next. So, he doesn't invent everything he does just like that. Okay? He doesn't think about it and say, oh, let's do this. And everybody says, yeah. No. He has advisors, and the advisors advise him on the best course of action. And in this instance, he gets this advice. Pick these issues. And he says, of course, what issues? Well, one of the issues is going to be crime. He will fight crime. That's what he says anyway. The other issue is going to be public schooling. Why not? So, crime and public schooling. Those are going to be the issues he will try to tackle. Now, the main issue of the other candidate will be traffic, as this is, well, crime and traffic will be indeed the biggest problems the city has. Okay, now just one little thing. The whole process here can be applied to any politician getting to any office, as long as he's elected to that office by the population. So this can be a president, a mayor, but if that office is filled by someone not elected but appointed to this office by some superior, well, then of course that's not going to apply. Now, what can we say about crime here? As we already stated, it comes from this neighborhood, and the way to deal with it is take money and pour it in, and then you increase the presence of the police raids, patrols, more funding for police cars, etc. All that money is gonna come from the rest of the city, and it's gonna go in there. Now, let's say our politician would lose his mind and decide to be very sincere, and he's gonna tell people, well, when he's gonna be asked, how will you solve the issue of crime in our city? Well, he's gonna say, I'm gonna take a lot of money from all other areas, like the fire department, like hospitals, other things, and I'm gonna pour it into the police force, and then I'm gonna put that police force in there. So I'm gonna pour it in that least attractive neighborhood in our city. Will the people like that? Well, most of them are not living in that neighborhood. If he phrases it like that, then they will not like it. But if he puts it in a different manner, like this, for example, yes, I'm going to fight crime. And the way I will do that is by increasing the police force fighting crime in the places where it is most rampant. Oh, yeah. You see, he didn't say anything about taking the funds. Actually, when you listen to that, it's almost like he's gonna snap his fingers and money's gonna pour down from the sky, and he's just gonna use it in a nice way, right? Nobody is clearly gonna feel any lack of funds, right? Any decrease in the funding of something else, right? Well, of course, wrong. He just won't mention it. Great. We have that out of the way. Now, what about that public schooling? You see, public schooling in this city, in this example, is not a problem. Why isn't it a problem? Well, let me give you a bit of statistical data in the city. The city, in our example, had 200 schools during the first year of the term of the previous mayor. Then, on the second year, one of these schools unfortunately had to close. So the city was left with 199. And then on the second year, so the third year of the term of the previous mayor, right? 2 more schools had to close. So in the end, the whole city was left with 197 schools. Okay, but in the 4th year, we had 2 new schools opening. So this trend, if you could call it that, which had its reasons, was almost reversed. Not totally, but almost. So as you see, the change here is almost, it's insignificant, totally insignificant. But our candidate is going to present it in such a way that this meaningless data, pretty much, is going to be is going to become an issue that he will successfully fight. How will he successfully fight it? Well, because it's no issue at all. It's not going to require more funding. It's not going to require any effort on his behalf, except to present it as something drastic. So how will he talk about it? Like this. Things are bad in public schooling. During my predecessor's first year, we had closures in public schooling. And then on the second year, 2 times as many schools closed as in his first year. Or actually, on his third term, on his third year, 2 times as many schools closed as in his second year and as in his first year. The situation is drastic. It's so drastic that someone decisive and, trustworthy has to come in, step in, and do something about it. Of course, that trustworthy person is going to be him. And he's not going to mention the fourth year when the public schooling system kind of made a comeback. No, he's going to kind of exclude that from his speech. He doesn't want that data disturbing what he said. And of course, what he said was true. That there was one school lost on the second year, and then 2 on the third. So that's 100% increase in school closure from the second to the third year. That's true. But if he put it like, if he gave the exact number, it would be rather clear that there is no issue here. But he's going to make it an issue. Okay? So, the best issue you can tackle is an issue that's not an issue at all. Okay, what about his opponent? Well, he has a very difficult situation here. You see, there are 3 ways you can actually solve the traffic issue, or try to do it. Now, one thing you can do is knock out some buildings in the center of the city and build roads in that space. This is, however, something the population will dislike. It's going to be very, very easy for any opponent to use this against you if you're going to actually do it. So there are going to be people forcibly moved, others won't want to move, of course, and no matter what compensation you provide, it's gonna be not so glorious, even if necessary. And the other thing you can do is make tunnels. So you can dig under and make a bypass and change the amount of cars that have to move on the surface, because some of them are going to go underground. And this is going to be an expensive thing to do, because of course you're going to have to be go deep enough, and well, there is going to be a lot of expense here. So that's the most costly option. And then there's another option. You can actually make more roads on the edge of the city, or even further on. And you can kind of direct a lot of traffic around some city areas. Now, this is not going to be as effective as the previous 2 ways, but it can have more benefits. Like, for example, I mentioned the port here, right? So, what if you could increase the amount of stuff going through the port just by increasing the amount of good roads that are in the area. The city will benefit, surely. Okay, so this is these are the issues that our candidates are going to tackle, and that those ways are going to be how they will approach them. I mean, what can the other guy say? Well, he's going to focus on one way of doing this, but each and every way is going to be kind of, well, not the best way. It's either going to be less effective or more costly, or it will create a bigger disturbance to the population. So whatever he chooses is not going to be the best issue, and he will indeed lose. But before that happens, our candidate, because we're going to be focusing on him, so this is the A candidate, right? The cynical candidate. He's going to have to secure some funds for his campaign. It costs money to, get to be mayor. You have to show yourself and make posters and etc. Whatever you call it, you need funds. Where will he get funds then? Well, the simplest way is to contact some group of, say, businessmen or big companies, to be more exact, and these companies will gladly provide him with funds. But why? Well, because a politician is exactly what they need in their pocket. This person will increase their profits and block things that they want blocked. Let me give you an example. Now, someone from our A candidate goes to a representative of the main companies operating in the city, and it so happens that whatever they do, they have to go through the port, right? So the thing is, the previous mayor wanted to impose a tax on them, and this tax wouldn't be that much of an effect on their profits. I mean, they would probably lose about 2% profits. Still, they can take it, right? But for the city, that would be a huge benefit, and they could actually put a lot of that money in, say, building up the roads. So in effect, this would benefit in some way those companies too, but only somewhere down the line. So the immediate effect would be them losing some of the profits they have, and they don't want that. So now our representative of candidate A goes to the big companies and meets with a representative of said companies, and we have a discussion, about funding the campaign, and this issue is mentioned that, yes, we will gladly provide the money. Yes, we're thinking about that, but I'm sure we're gonna come to a consensus about it. Absolutely. But there is this small issue, yet it kind of affects us. Oh yeah, what is it? Well, it's that tax, that nasty tax. I mean, it's such a big burden. In effect, we would have to probably change the city we're supporting, because it's going to be too costly to operate here. I don't know. Of course, I understand, and believe me, candidate A understands that too. He always says, always, says that free trade is the basis of a prosperous city, and I don't think he would have it any other way. I'm actually sure he wouldn't. And then they have a deal. Nothing signed, nothing directly promised. Of course, they might directly speak about it, but if someone was to say record this might be a problem down the road. So either they will have a discussion that's more direct, or they will have a discussion like this, and everything will be pretty much clear. So now we have the funds and we have the issues our candidate will address. Now let's assume he won, and now he needs to go and do something, right, as the mayor. But actually there is one thing I'd like to mention from his campaign. And actually anybody's campaign, any politician will meet some journalist or talk show host, or someone will ask him this. So the issues you will take care of are crime and public schooling. Yes. What about, and maybe he'll mention traffic, or maybe he'll mention, let's say, the fire department. There were more fires. Let's say that happened. Or maybe it's going to be hospitals which need some funding. But let's say it's the fire department. Okay? What are you going to do about the fire department? Because, we have more and more fires. They actually increased substantially in the last year. And are there going to be measures that you and your people are going to take? And then the candidate smiles and says, of course. This issue, as every other issue, but of course this issue, yes, it actually, we are focusing on that. Honestly, yes. We are putting our best people to find the best solution to this problem. And believe me, I will not rest until it is actually one way or another fixed. So, what did he say? Well, absolutely nothing. Of course, if he would again lose his mind and decide to be very, very sincere, then he would say, oh, the fire department? Oh, yeah. Look, I'm not going to do anything about that. That's not my issue. I'm not going to focus on that. Actually, I'm probably going to take some money out of that, because I need that for the police department. I'm going to fund that a lot. So, yeah, you're probably going to have more fires. Ha, ha, ha. No, that wouldn't go, right? So you'll see that in any political debate when a candidate is asked, what is he going to do about that? What is he going to do about those other issues that he normally doesn't mention? He's going to always nod his head, say, yes, and then whatever he says is pretty much meaningless. But he can't, of course, say nothing. He has to make these kind of promises. Now, let's go to after the election. We're still with this one candidate, remember that, with the cynic. So, now he's elected, and now he has to do something about the issues. Well, the plan is simple already. Pump some of the money distributed in other areas and, divert it to those issues he mentioned. And one of those issues, as it happens, is no issue at all, as we already said. But he wants to make some show, an effort that's going to be pretty much meaningless, but it's also not going to be too costly. So what he's going to do is make some public effort. He's going to open a new school, or maybe two, you know. He doesn't have to do very much right away. He's going to have 4 years for that. So the last year, the fourth year, the election year, that's when he's going to pull the biggest stunts. He's going to make the biggest fuss about anything he does. And for the first 3 years, he's going to make some token moves. And what are those token moves? What are the possibilities? Because those two issues, crime, public schooling, were those he was prepared to tackle, prepared to do something about it. But what about traffic? That is a big issue. And sure, he didn't really mention that, but now he is faced with the issue itself and he has to do something about it. Or does he? Well, if he does nothing, absolutely nothing, this is gonna cause a lot of bad feelings in the population of the city. Even if they picked him because what he was saying, he might not get elected on the second term, for the second term. And he would like to get elected for the second term. Sure, why not? So he needs to maneuver a little. For the first year, he's probably going to stretch out the time before doing anything. How does he do that? Well, he does absolutely nothing, or hires a group of specialists, and they are specialists, yes. And he says, okay, find the best way to deal with traffic. And they'll be able to give him the answers in like one day. Because the answers, we already mentioned them. There are three possibilities. It's pretty obvious. And he's going to say, yeah, but before we make the decision, we want to know all the options. And is this really the best solution? And can we do something else? And then the specialist will understand what's expected of them. That is, to stretch this out as humanly possible. 1 year? Well, maybe that's possible to stretch it for that long. And during this time, well, technically they won't be doing anything. They will get some sort of salary. So some of the funds of the city will be wasted. But what's going to happen is the issue is going to be approached. And our politician is going to say to everyone that asks, yes, he is actually doing something about traffic right now. The process has already started. Now then, eventually he won't be able to wait for any longer. So what he will be able to do is, well, remember that his goal is not to solve traffic or the issue of traffic in the city. Okay, that's not his issue. He wants to make it so that they'll get off his back about it, but not spend much money on it. He has other stuff that he wants to pour that money in. So he'll make a small fund, let's say 10% of what's needed, and start doing something. And then the process of doing something will be stretched for years. Maybe for his whole term, for example. But that will be some small drain on the budget. But there's also another way to approach this. A bit risky, perhaps. The way you do this is you make a big fund just as needed, and you don't want to apply that too early. You want to apply that to the issue in your election year, because then when you actually get those funds and put them in, you can actually get elected and then decrease the fund as you wish, really. Okay, so you can just redistribute the money immediately after you get re-elected. Now, I don't want to make this as a political issue or anything, but you probably heard about Obamacare in the United States. And if you look closely, it was President Obama's fourth year, election year, when the Obamacare actually passed. And the first things that happened after the election was a substantial decrease in the funding of that. Make of it what you want, but honestly, any politician maybe will have to maneuver, or maybe will maneuver, or whatever context or words you put in around it or in it, there will be some maneuvering. But can we be sure? What about a martyr, as I mentioned? So this is a separate situation now that we'll be talking about. However, to make things easy, I will actually take a copy paste of this city and its issues, okay? But now our A candidate is going to be actually an M candidate. That is our martyr candidate. This is the good guy. This is the one that wants to really help people. So how does he do that? Well, let's start from the funding, right? He wants to get those funds and theoretically not do anything against the city. Stopping the tax on the imports here will be affecting the city negatively. That's absolutely positive. But that is the easiest way he can get funds. Maybe he'll try to get small amounts of money from different people. So that's the way he's going to approach his campaign. It is possible, theoretically. If you remember Bernie Sanders in, well, it's the last election in the United States as of now. I believe that he didn't have any big funding, just from people. So it is kind of possible, but it's probably not likely. So if he really thinks that he's going to do so much good for the city, then he should probably be sure of the funding he's going to get. And that means that he needs to make a deal with some big corporation. But that corporation will only make a deal with him if they can benefit from his term in office. But he doesn't want to do what they want him to do. So in this very start, before he actually starts campaigning at all, he will have to lie to the people which will give him money. And let's say he does that. Okay, so our very good guy starts from big lies, and then he gets into political debates and all, and now he has two choices. Either, as I said before, present what he's gonna do in the right light, in the right perspective, and leave out those things he won't want to include, to not distort his message and how good the things will be after he gets elected, or he can lose. That's basically it, because he's gonna tell things as they are, but that might be not attractive at all. So the other candidate will just make a more attractive vision of what his term in office is going to be. So if our martyr candidate wants to get elected, for the people, of course, he will have to lie to the people right there, or distort the facts. So use the methods that the previous candidate, our A candidate, used. There pretty much isn't any bypass. There isn't any exception to this. That's just how things will be. Now, let's say he does get elected. The first thing he will see is that he does not have enough money to fix all the issues. And if he really wants to fix the most immediate issues first, right, then he's probably not going to go into public schooling, even if he lied and mentioned it in his campaign. So right from the beginning, our martyr guy is not going to do what he promised. So he's a bigger liar than the first guy, because he said that to get elected. So that was the only reason. And now he's elected. And now he does what needs to be done. Or does he? You see, if he lied to the guys who gave him money, to the companies who gave him money, and the tax in this example passes, they will see he backstabbed them, basically. Okay? And what will they do? Well, what can a company do against a politician? Or a lot, if they funded other politicians that are in a position to block what this politician is doing. So now, if they have someone like a senator, which would be above a mayor, and that senator could, in some country, don't take this as a specific example in a specific country, okay? But you can have senators, you can have the president, you can have other officials that benefited from certain companies, and now they see a traitor in their midst. A mayor that decided to back off from the word he gave the companies. The companies that fund not only him but others too. And they will block everything that he does. It's pretty simple, really. Okay, is it? Well, usually it's not a dictatorship, in a city. You have a council of people, and then you have the mayor, sure. The exact amount of power he has and they have may be different in different areas, different countries, but you can see that there are a lot of people that can possibly block his efforts. And you should note that this martyr guy, he kind of went against the people who helped him get elected in the first place. So all those in the political campaign he had are kind of tainted now, because they were helping a guy that backed off from what he said, from what he promised the companies. Now those companies, will they say hire them? You can say, what does that matter? What does that matter if a company will hire you or not if you're working with a politician? Well, this politician has a 4-year term, in which we already established will probably be blocked on every approach, every angle, everything he does. Okay? Add some press to this and add some thinking about the future. People who are in these campaigns sometimes or quite often go and work in the public sector, or they would want to work with other politicians in the future if they're good at their job. Great, but now they were actively helping the black sheep, so to speak, and yeah, that might kind of leave them tainted. So they probably didn't know about the candidate's real intentions when he was actually trying to get elected, which means he lied to them too. This guy, the good guy, okay, quote unquote good guy, is really a liar as no other. And it's necessity. If he really had those intentions, of being just the best kind of mayor there can be, he had to lie to basically everybody. Of course, in a political campaign, you can have advisors that will react positively to you, saying, I really want to make a change. I really want to be the best mayor, etc. But if you go like fanatical about it, then most of them will understand that you're kind of going overboard with this. But is that all? Well, let's see. Our candidate is going to be blocked. He had to lie to basically everyone from the start, and now he's not going to get too much done. But let's say he has a few things he would like to do, and are there really those things that he promised? Well, only if those are really the issues. And if he's going to be too sincere right now, well, of course he's not going to get reelected. That's sure, absolutely certain. And he's probably going to be remembered as the worst mayor ever. And well, I could go on and on about this, but you can see, I think clearly, that to be an effective politician, you need to be ready to lie. And you should understand that you're going to be mostly doing stuff to stay in office, to get reelected, to help your political party, for example, and not to help people. But of course, sometimes you're going to pass an issue, you're going to do something that will benefit people, yes, and you can be kind of focused on that a little, but if your primary concern will not be getting elected and staying in office and getting re-elected, if that's not going to be at the top of your list, then you're going to fail. And most likely you're going to fail even before you get anywhere near the office you intended to occupy for some time. So that's it, pretty much. Okay, so if you have some comments, questions, etc., do write them below. I'll try to go through all of them. And if you want another video that clarifies something, write that too. And the standard, if you like the video, and if not, well, thanks for watching it anyway. So bye.